Stay tuned to Radio IPSA 91.2 FM. जो कहे दिल की बात.
Hello, you are tuned to 91.2 FM Radio Apsa, जो कहे दिल की बात, and this is your radio jockey Falak. So today we have a very special guest in our studio. Can you guess who it is? Let me give you a hint. So he is a very famous and renowned chess player. Not only player, but he is a grandmaster. So let me introduce you to Michał Krasenkow. Hi, Michael.
Hello, glad to see you.
So how are you feeling?
Quite well. It's a bit too hot, but okay, no problem.
So I guess it's your first time when you are in Indore, right?
Yes, it's my first time in Indore, although I have been in India many times, but in
Yeah.
this state and this city, it's the first time.
So how do you feel about Indore?
No, very nice city. So when you come to Indore, you see this announcement, welcome to the cleanest city of India, and indeed it's really very clean and very nice.
Well, Michael, how do you feel sitting in the studio?
Yes, nice. No problem.
Well, Michael Krasenko doesn't need an introduction, but let me still give you a brief about him. So he's a very renowned chess grandmaster, also a chess trainer, and apart from this, he's also a writer. And still, if we talk about him, so let me tell you that he has been one of the strongest Polish chess players since World War II. Apart from apart from this, he's also a national player since 2010, and Michael is also a national coach since 2010. So, Michael, today we are going to talk about Soviet Union, USSR. We are also going to talk about the collapse of USSR. So it was 26 December 1991 when the world watched its most powerful communist country in the history collapse. So, Michael, before jumping onto that, I would like to talk about your past experiences, how your life has been in Moscow. As you're born in Moscow, you used to play for Soviet Union. Then, how did you immigrated to Poland, and why Poland?
Well, actually, this the life in the Soviet Union. It's not easy to explain in a few words how was the life in the Soviet Union. The life was, in fact, quite difficult. What we didn't understand
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because it was quite a closed country. We could not travel abroad. We could
yeah,
not see how people live in other countries. So some of us could see that, but most of the population could only dream about
yeah,
traveling to other
absolutely.
countries. And okay, if you imagine the situation when everything practically everything belongs to the state,
Yeah,
uh, you cannot develop a private initiative. You can develop some initiative, but you must be in good terms with state officials. Yeah, so it was like that, and you cannot sometimes you cannot get basic goods
yeah,
because there are always deficiencies. So, but it was like we took it as normal because we didn't see other life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And what happened then? It was the reforms that started when Gorbachev came to power,
yeah,
and then the situation changed quite rapidly. Then, around 1988, it was already possible to travel abroad, at least for chess players to
yeah,
play in international tournaments. And of course, it was then uh, the Soviet Union gradually already started to collapse. Some chaos started in the Soviet Union, and of course, a lot of people, including myself, thought about emigrating to some other quiet country to where I can. For instance, in the Soviet Union, you always now it was possible to travel abroad, but to travel abroad, you also have to get visas.
yeah,
which was not sometimes not so easy.
Yes, absolutely.
Then then that's why to play regularly in international tournaments, so I decided it would be better if I moved to some other country. And why to Poland? It was just an occasion. I played in the Polish team championship for one of the clubs, and I told my teammates about this this problem. And one day I received a phone call from the boss of our club, and he invited me to live in Poland. And I'm not going to delve into the conditions that he offered me, but at least I could live in Poland. I could play chess, play in international tournaments, so have some basic income. So it's and for me it was an excellent
Yeah.
opportunity. So had I been invited to some other country, probably I would have gone to some.
Okay, so that's how you immigrated to Poland.
Yeah.
So we can say that chess was the main reason behind it.
Yes.
Okay. So today we have Michał Krasenkow with us, but now it's the time for a short break. We'll be back rightly. You stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio IPSA, Jakahe Dil Ki Baat.
Stay tuned to Radio IPSA 91.2 FM. जो कहे दिल की बात.
Hello, you are tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio IPSA, Jakahe Dil Ki Baat, and this is your radio jockey, Falak. Today we have a very special guest, that is Michał Krasenkow with us. He is a very renowned grandmaster and chess, and apart from this, he is also the national coach since 2010. So, Michael, I would like to ask you then, when USSR collapsed, how were the situations at that time? And particularly, if we talk about you, what were your thoughts, and especially what were your dreams and future goals?
Well, actually, when all these changes started, of course, I, as well as I think a lot of people in Russia, in the Soviet Union, supported these changes and
Yeah.
wanted to live in a democratic society.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't expect exactly that it will be a collapse of the country,
Yeah.
but definitely we as we knew more and more, we got more and more information about this Soviet regime. So uh, we thought about changing it. We hoped that it would change it. That Russia, in that case, would become a democratic country. So, of course, no one could expect what is happening now.
Yeah.
Russia has turned into a dictatorship. But at that time, we were happy. I remember, if you remember, in August 1991, there was a coup attempt. Yeah. Organized by hardliners and the Soviet authorities. At that time, I was playing in a tournament in Spain, and I didn't know what to do. Shall I come back to Russia or not, or ask for political asylum? But then what to do with my family, because I already had a wife and a child. So unfortunately, in a couple of days, the coup collapsed, and so and in a few more months, the Soviet Union also collapsed. That was, of course, something we supported. But on the other hand, as I said, these changes and collapse of the Soviet Union led to an extreme chaos, because the all this change of, first of all, because of the change of the economic relations.
Yeah.
So earlier everything belonged to the state. Now there is private property, sometimes attained in a not the fairest way. So there were a lot of problems, and therefore I thought that for my chess career it would be better to go to another country. No, and it was finally I can say that it was a good decision because I developed my chess career.
Yeah, Poland has been good for you.
Yes, yes. So I made a lot of successes. By the way, I'm not the national trainer anymore. I was national trainer of Poland till from 2010 till 2014. So probably information in Wikipedia is
Okay.
not updated.
Yeah.
Now I mostly simply play chess. Occasionally I coach various people, various players, but I have no government job or whatever.
Okay. So, Michael, if we talk about your family, so how was your connection with your family, especially when you immigrated to Poland? Your family was still in USSR.
No, the USA didn't exist anymore. It was already 1992 in Russia. It was a bit interesting. It was quite interesting because uh, for several years we lived in some strange way. So I traveled from Poland to Russia and back. My
Yeah.
family mostly lived in Russia, but sometimes in Poland. So we had two homes.
Yeah.
But then finally we came to the conclusion that it was very inconvenient. And finally, my family, my wife and daughter moved to Poland. And we were concerned that the kid could have problems to learn a new language and so on. But in fact, it went very easily because for kids it's very easy to
Yeah.
learn a new language because they learn it as a native
Yes,
language.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's now my daughter has her family herself. I have two very beautiful grandsons.
That is so
So
beautiful.
yeah, so like that.
Okay, so we'll talk with Michael after a break because it's time for a short break. You stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio IPSA, Jagahe Dil Ki Baat, and this is your radio jockey, Falak. Hello and welcome back. This is RJ Falak, and you are tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio IPSA, Jagahe Dil Ki Baat. So today we are here and I am in a conversation with Michael Krasenkow. It's my good fortune to have him here and have a conversation with him. So, Michael, I would like to ask that how you met your wife. As far as I know, she's Russian, right?
Yes, exactly. And we met in Moscow. Actually, it was when I graduated from the it was called University of Petrochemical industry and petrochemical and gas industry, but my specialty was applied mathematics.
Okay.
And however, after graduating from the university, I was conscripted to the army. There was in the Soviet Union in universities, students along with normal studies had military training very often in most of universities, and then some of them could be conscripted to the army for a couple of
Yeah.
years, and that happened to me. I spent 2 years in the Republic of Georgia, and mostly, of course, I played chess because I immediately contacted the chess club, the army chess club, and they were happy to have me in their team. And I was at that time I was not a grandmaster yet, but I was quite a strong national
Yeah.
master. And I became champion of Georgia, by the way, in the meantime. And when I came back to Moscow after that service, I decided to pursue my chess career because I forgot all these mathematics
Yeah.
completely while serving in the army. So I made some progress in
Yeah.
chess, and I decided to play chess. I could become a grandmaster along with playing. So mostly I played, but along with playing, I worked as a coach in one of the chess clubs in Moscow, and I had a group of students, and my future wife was one of my students. So that's how we met.
Okay.
Yes.
So, anything about your family?
Oh, yeah. So you mean my parents
Yeah,
or what?
your parents.
No, actually, my grandfather was kind of an economist.
Okay.
He worked in some government government institute in the Soviet Union. My mother also my mother was an engineer. She also worked. She was in a constructor's office. So generally, you see this. They had not very much to do with chess. So,
Yeah.
but it was my grandmother who taught me to play chess.
Oh.
Then I went to the chess club because in the Soviet Union life was difficult, but it was less difficult for kids because kids had a lot of
Yeah.
possibilities to
Yeah.
develop their abilities.
Absolutely.
And so I started playing chess and gradually made progress. No, this of course is a long story to talk about that. But gradually, when I finished school and went to university, then I became national master in chess. But I didn't want to become a professional chess player because no, generally there was no officially there were no professional chess players in the Soviet Union because everyone must be, I don't know, some worker, an engineer,
Yeah.
a military serviceman or whatever.
Yeah.
So officially, in fact, of course, top players were professionals, of course. And that it happened that. Because after finishing my studies, I was conscripted to the army. It, then I had no choice but to play chess, and that's why, fortunately for me, I made progress and then decided to devote my life to chess. No, uh, so it is like that, and of course, it is. Because the life of a chess player is different from a person who simply works
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
You needn't go to a work. You needn't go to an office or whatever. You can do whatever you want. But of course, it is on the other hand, you should not forget to train and to prepare for chess
Yeah.
tournaments.
Yeah.
Mm,
Absolutely. So yes, you opted for a different career than your family.
yes, definitely.
So that's how the journey of Michal Krasenko has been. But we are going to talk about something important after the break. We'll discuss how the situations were at the time of collapse. So you stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Upsal, Chikahe Dal Ki Baat, and this is
Stay tuned to Radio IPSA 91.2 FM जो कहे दिल की बात.
Hello, you are tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Upsal, Chikahe Dal Ki Baat, and this is your radio jockey, Falak with Michal Krasenko. So Michael is the grandmaster of chess, and Michael, now as we are talking about, the collapse of USSR. So following the resignation of Mikhail Gorbachev, the USSR, or we can say the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, collapsed into 15 independent states. So it also ended the Cold War between the East and West, which lasted about 44 years. So, how the situations were at that time and how the people were feeling at that time?
Actually, my impression is that most of people, at least in Russia, I don't know about the other republics of the Soviet Union, were happy to get rid of this communist regime.
Yeah.
Regarding the collapse of the state, well, there were, of course, various opinions. But for instance, there was an opinion that we should not feed all these, other republics.
Yeah.
So we'll better do on our own. So something like that. So generally, my impression was it was a very it was, I would say, quite a short moment, but it was very important. And unfortunately, I think the Russian authorities, the Russian political elite, didn't make enough use of that.
Yeah.
So because at that period, most of people supported the changes, but already in a couple of years later, when life was still very difficult, and life was completely different from what they used to have. So a lot of people started to feel nostalgia of the Soviet Union, and think, let's come back. Oh, it was impossible, of course, to come back. No, and unfortunately, also my opinion is that the other countries, the opposite side of the Cold War, I mean, U.S. and Western countries, they missed that important moment. Uh, you know, it happened in some sense like it was with Germany.
Yeah.
After World War One, so the countries which defeated Germany in World War One, because it was different, it was a bloody war, it was not like a Cold War. So the countries that defeated Germany were just happy to defeat Germany, and didn't think very much. So they were happy to get some reparations from Germany and other benefits, and didn't think about integrating Germany into their club.
Yeah.
The result was, of course, Hitler came to power,
Yeah.
World War II, and all these atrocities and all this disaster. The same, and after that, after World War II ended, and Nazi Germany was defeated, then the policy was completely different. Then they integrated Germany into their organization, into their society. They created this. No, what finally became the European Union, where Germany played an important part. So now it looks like we know everything. We know what happens. Uh, we know the wrong way, and we know the right way.
Yeah.
And still, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they chose the wrong way towards Russia. So
Yes.
isolation. Russian people couldn't travel to Western countries. Had to get visas. It was even sometimes humiliating. So a lot of problems. So they behaved as winners of the Cold War. So the result, of course, was the same, actually. The only difference is that Hitler had no nuclear bomb and Putin has a nuclear bomb. So now I don't know. Now the situation. Now I don't know how it will develop. Now there is this war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So Putin and his government, they don't want to stop. They want to win that war. They have no idea of any concessions, and now I don't know what will happen. Now it's very difficult. We have a lot of refugees in Poland. I even for some time I worked as a volunteer to help refugees to obtain some important documents, and also, my son-in-law is Ukrainian, although he's not a refugee because he came to Poland much earlier. But his parents have problem because they stay in Ukraine. They
Yeah.
cannot leave, and they at, at any moment a bomb can drop on them.
Absolutely.
So this is so a terrible situation, and actually I don't see how it can be resolved.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that time in Russia, the situations were quite complicated.
Yeah, you mean in that time?
Yeah, at
Yes.
that time.
In that time, yes. In that time, of course, there were a lot of problems. First of all, economic problems
Yeah.
for Russian people, as well as in Germany after World War One.
Yeah.
So a lot of similarities, and the same problem: wrong policy towards Germany then, and towards Russia. Then. The
Yeah.
result is the same. No?
Yeah.
Difference is nuclear weapons.
Absolutely. So now it's the time for a short break, and we'll be back shortly. You stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Psalgic Ahead Baat, and this is your radio jockey Falak.
Stay tuned to Radio IPSA 91.2 FM. जो कहे दिल की बात.
Hello, you are listening 91.2 FM, Radio Psalgic Ahead Baat, and this is your radio jockey Falak. So today we have here Michał Krasenkow, and he's a chess player, chess trainer, and a grandmaster. So, Michael, as we are discussing about the collapse of USSR, I would like to ask about the situations that were at that time because I heard that and I also read that there were difficulties in shopping as well, and the citizens have to suffer a lot because of that. So, could you please give a brief about it?
Hmm. Okay, shortages, and it was a quite usual thing in the Soviet Union. You always have problems to buy this thing or
Yeah,
that thing.
there was
Even,
monopoly, right?
I'm sorry, toilet paper was
Yeah,
sometimes difficult to get. And uh, I lived in Moscow. In Moscow, you we have better possibilities, more possibilities to shop to get basic things. But for instance, when I told you when I served in the army in Georgia and played chess there, we had one of the tournaments in a city of Tskhinvali, which was the capital of South Ossetia, the republic within Georgia. Now it is a kind of independent state, but that's another story. And we stayed in a hotel, but there was no water.
yeah,
So no, we do. I'm not speaking about hot water. We had no water at all. So only once a day for some 5 or 10 minutes we got so water.
yeah,
So the water came. It was a kind of a holiday for everyone because we immediately took all possible things to collect that water and then to use it during the whole day until
yeah,
next time it will come. So the situation in was very difficult in the Soviet Union, and when this even before all this change, because when I was in the army, it was already Gorbachev was in power, but he has not yet started major reforms.
okay,
And then when the reforms started, then it became even worse because there was already some kind of private initiative. Private initiative, then the people could establish the prices of the goods themselves, and fixed prices in government shops were not were too attractive
yeah,
for the buyers, so they bought everything they could. So then, at some point, indeed, we got was how it was called invitation cards or something like that
okay,
to buy basic things. No, and finally it ended when after the collapse of the Soviet Union, all these government prices were abolished,
yeah,
and the free establishment of prices prices was introduced. But then, of course, everything became much more expensive.
yeah, absolutely.
So, so that's how it was. But otherwise, the point is that I already mostly during these first years of after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mostly lived in Poland already,
Yeah.
so I'm not very much familiar with the life of people, of ordinary people,
Yeah.
not those who could earn hard currency or whatever in Russia.
Yeah.
So I guess it was difficult, but I don't know about details.
Okay. All right. So now it's time for the break, and we'll be back, and we are going to talk about the situation when Michael Gorbachev came into power. So you stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Upsala Jagahe Zalkibat,
Mhm.
and this is your RJ Falak.
You-
3, 2, 1.
Hello, you are tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Upsala Jagahe Zalkibat, and this is your radio jockey Falak with Michael Krasenkow. So, Michael, now I would like to ask you that in the year 1985, when Mikhail Gorbachev was appointed as the General Secretary of the Union, so was it seen as a sign of relief and hope for the people?
At that time, no one I think paid special attention to that. Before that, we had uh, a number of leaders, old leaders who quickly died, and now we had another leader. Okay, maybe younger, maybe no. The first sign that something had changed was when he started you know talking without looking at the paper, without looking at the text of his speech. But okay, this was not a big thing. But then, the first 2 years after he came to power, there was nothing special. One thing that changed was that we got more information about the atrocities during the Stalin regime.
Yeah.
That was probably the first thing that that was changed. Okay, no, it's not a big deal. Generally, life didn't change
Yeah.
much. Then real changes started in I would say in 1987, 88,
Hmm.
when people got an opportunity, for instance, to travel abroad.
Yeah.
When okay, regarding private initiative, it was a bit later. Well, but also already started this. It was called cooperatives, so private enterprises. So they this what appeared, I would say, in 88, 89. So it changed gradually and somehow, but still, there was no impression that the Soviet Union was going to collapse.
Yeah.
Okay, there were changes. Maybe there would be some. There would be more democracy. No, the first thing that, of course, that hinted that the Soviet Union could collapse was the situation in the Baltic states, because they were annexed to the Soviet Union in 1940. They never wanted to be in the Soviet Union, and when they got more freedom, so this movement of secession immediately started,
Yeah.
and that was. I remember when I came, it was in 1988. I came to Vilnius to play in the tournament, the chess tournament, which was called Soviet Young Masters Championship. No, it doesn't. So whatever, it doesn't matter. But I saw that there were already demonstrations, that people wanted wanted independence. No, so that was probably the first time when the Soviet Union started to shake.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all this process developed very quickly after
Okay, so Michael, when Mikhail Gorbachev came into power, there were several decentralization reforms that were introduced. He even undertook a program, to revitalize and liberalize the union. However, the reason for the collapse is still subject to much disputes. But it is also believed that Mikhail Gorbachev is one of the reasons behind collapse. So how far do you agree with this?
of course, uh, the role of a person is, especially the leader of the country, is always very important. That, that is for sure. Would the Soviet Union collapse if there would have been another leader? We cannot say.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to no analysis can be made in that sense. But of course, everything changes. All countries, empires don't exist forever.
Yeah.
So probably in some other way, it would it, it would have also collapsed. Maybe, maybe.
He even implemented some new policies such as restructuring and transparency, openness.
Yeah, that was no. As I said, first 2 years there were no
Yeah.
major reforms. Okay, there was a bit more openness, but that mostly about history. That I said that the Stalin regime and the all repressions, that atrocities of that regime, that came to light. But otherwise, okay. Also, of course, as usual, as every leader who criticized his predecessors,
Yeah.
but that was like normal. It was not considered like something special. Okay, and then when real reform started, then indeed, first of all, economic reform started. So support of private initiative, and that already was something substantial. Because that is that was not just words, but some real things.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
It is also seen that the reforms that were implemented did not much stood up to the expectations of the people.
I don't know. I think people had enough communist regime, and even the fact that people supported, at least in Russia,
Yeah.
people supported Yeltsin, who wanted even more reforms,
Yeah.
even more radical reforms. That means that that means that people wanted reforms.
Yeah.
It's not like they wanted to keep the situation as it was, especially as they saw that the situation was not good.
Yeah.
In fact. So, well, the other question is when, after some years of reforms, when life of people became still remained difficult, or maybe became difficult in some other sense. So then this nostalgia appears.
So that's how the
Okay.
situations have been in USSR, and now I'll be taking a break. After that, we'll be talking about certain other things. So you stay tuned to 91.2 FM, Radio Upsala Jo Kahe Dil Ki Baat, and this is your radio jockey Falak. Hello, you are listening 91.2 FM, Radio Upsala Jo Kahe Dil Ki Baat, and this is your radio jockey Falak with Michael Krasenkow, grandmaster of chess. So, Michael, as you immigrated to Poland, but before that you lived in Moscow, USSR. So, how is your life different in Poland, and how was your life in Moscow?
Actually, Poland. When I immigrated to Poland, it was already very much different from Russia, because in Poland, even under communist regimes, there always were elements of free market. So there was not a problem to buy basic things, and generally it was kind of a normal life. So very soon, maybe not very soon, because I got the Polish citizenship something like 4 years after coming to Poland. But when I got it, it was so I could easily, without any problems, travel to
Yeah.
other countries. So continue my chess career. So this was of course much easier. Uh, oh, regarding regarding the everyday life, no, of course it was quite easy. It was not a problem at all. You needn't you, you had no problems to find the toilet paper.
Yeah.
So, generally, all kinds of food easily buy, no problem. That was no problem. Although I know that in the last years of the communist regime, there were big problems in Poland. Also, there were a lot of shortages. There were also these cards. So, but when I came there, it was already over.
Yeah.
So,
So, any experiences of your in Moscow?
uh, com- to compare, uh, I mostly concentrated on my chess career, so I didn't, uh, of course it was very much different, but so analyzing in
Yeah.
which it is different, in
Yeah.
which it was similar. This the this is something I was not going to do, and generally, no, okay, Poland in some sense had this well, had had this some uh, similarities to the former Soviet Union because there were still remains of this communist regime. Some no, I'm not going to explain it
Yeah.
deeply, but there were some similarities. But generally, it became more and more different every year.
Okay. So, apart from this, your any life experiences or life stories, or something that you want to share?
Uh, my experience, my
Or any
life,
life story?
well, I don't know. It's hard to say, but and a lot of stories, mostly the chess stories, because during my chess career,
Yeah.
I had contacts with a lot of outstanding people,
Yeah.
outstanding chess players. So, so it was of course very interesting to contact them and to talk to them, and sometimes to play chess against them. So, so regarding non-chess stories, somehow I, d- I can't remember very well what
Uh,
happened. Okay,
yeah.
let's leave it as it is.
And also, you are the first Poland player to cross 2700, right?
Yeah, this was in that time I was number 10 in the world, but I was very unlucky because somehow I didn't manage to capitalize from that. I didn't got invitations to top tournaments, and then I had a very poor period of my chess career when I lost a lot of rated points and generally so this was just a short moment which I didn't explore.
Yeah. So that's how your journey has been, and you became a grandmaster. So, Michael, it was really nice talking to you. I came to know about a lot of things, and as I earlier also said, that it's my good fortune to have you here and have a conversation with you. It was really nice, and so, Michael, it was really nice to meet you, and it was my pleasure. And as I earlier also said, that it was my good fortune to have a conversation with you. So, thank you so much that you actually came here and gave us your precious time.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure for me to talk to you and to express my views. So, and all the best to you and to the beautiful city of Indore.
And actually, even I came to know a lot of things from you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So, listeners, this was Michal Krasenkow, a famous chess player, chess trainer, grandmaster with us today. And I came to know a lot of things that I actually discussed with you also. So, if you want to listen something like this interesting, then you stay tuned to 91.2 FM Radio IPSA Ahe Dal Ki Baat. And this is your radio jockey Falak.
Stay tuned to Radio IPSA 91.2 FM, जो कहे दिल की बात.